The Heat have won 8 of their last 9 games, but many view this team as one trade away from being a legitimate contender, whatever that means. And with buzz continuing to build around the NBA for potential trade targets, Jordan Poole, DeMar DeRozan, and more, would any of them be the missing piece for Miami? We'll debate the options and why they won't be the best fit for Miami and dig into Jimmy Butler's recent comments about Nikola Jovic, all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg. Joining me as always, David Ramil. However, you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Got a fun show for you today. We're going to get to a few fake trade ideas that we wouldn't do in a minute. But first, let's start with Jimmy Butler's outspoken support of Nikola Jovic. Butler traveled to Wisconsin to watch Nico play in his first G League game of the season earlier this week. Remember, of course, that Jimmy Butler also said that Nikola Jovic was walking like a man with his chest out during training camp. So he's been supportive of this guy for a long time now. And here's what he said when he was asked about using his off day to go watch Nikola Jovic and the Skyforce.
And what inspired the trip to Oshkosh to go see the guys?
Nico, I gotta go see my boy, man. I'm a huge Nico fan, and I think he's gonna help this organization well after I'm done here. And that's my dog. That's the bro. I love him to death. So anytime I get a chance to go watch him hoop, I will watch him hoop. Y'all stop playing Nico at the 5, man. Nico's not a 5.
Couple things to get there, though. He's his dog. David, what did you make of Jimmy Butler's comments about Nikola Jovic?
I love it. I think there's so many people who are kind of rooting for Jovic because he's still a young player and he's shown such promise. And there's the idea that maybe he's kind of like played out of position, which Jimmy did reference, but also the fact that maybe, he doesn't fit into the current window and things of that sort. I disagree with all that. And what I really like about this is just Jimmy's unwavering support of a guy. Like, he didn't have to go to Wisconsin. He didn't have to even make these comments. And I know that with Jimmy, it's always a little tongue in cheek, but I generally think that this is Jimmy being an unheralded leader in the locker room, something that he hasn't ever really been seen as because of the way he forced his way out of Chicago or Minnesota or even whatever problems he might have had in Philadelphia. Like, he leads by example, but I'll always recall when he first joined the team in 2019 and all throughout that whole season when nobody else believed in his group and everybody said Jimmy came to South Florida to retire and things along those lines. Jimmy was a great leader, very vocal, telling everybody, and now we're going to go and win the championship. Now we're going to go win the championship. And slowly but surely, everybody started to believe the mantra. And he just gets guys to believe. And because he is so good at playing the game itself, everybody else kind of steps up their game as a result. And I think his support of Jovic is fantastic. And I believe him. I think he's a true believer in what Jovic can do.
The leadership take is a good one. The fact that Jimmy Butler is an underrated leader is something you and I have agreed with for a long time. The power of repetition in terms of always saying that they're going to win the championship every chance that he gets. And then kind of just putting more confidence into these guys, whether it's in the locker room by himself or just talking with the media in quotes like this. All that kind of stuff matters. And it's important to do it in a lot of different ways. And I think Jimmy Butler knows that. My takeaway from this was that Jimmy Butler is also preaching patience when it comes to Nikola Jovic. A lot of Heat fans have been frustrated with the lack of playing time for Nico this season. The fact that he went to the G League in the first place and is having to play minutes there is a source of frustration for a lot of Heat fans. He's obviously not part of the rotation right now, and that's why he's in the G League, is to get those reps. But Jimmy Butler saying that this guy is going to be a player, that he is a good player already, and that he's going to be part of the Miami Heat's future, even when Jimmy Butler is retired, in essence, is what he's trying to say here. That to me is preaching patience to Heat fans. And I think Heat fans should heed those words and say, like, okay, like maybe we don't need Nikola Jovic to play right now. Maybe we should believe that Eric Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler know a little bit more than we do about how ready it is that Nikola Jovic is to play. And so just because he's not playing now does not mean he's not a good player. Doesn't mean he's not part of Miami's plans in the future. It doesn't mean really much of anything. It just means he's not playing right now. That's all it means. Right. And I like the patience that Jimmy Butler is preaching here. I want to get to, unless we have anything else on that, I want to get to what he says at the end.
No, I like your take on that, though, because I think a lot of people kind of see him and being like the talent, the fact that he showed out in the FIBA World Cup and understand why he can't like necessarily fit a role this season. But Miami's still pretty good. And this is so unusual because again, with rookies like Hawkes, he's so much more fully formed in the defensive end. And I think that's the real difference here is that he fits in much more easily. And he's older. He's 3 years older than Jovic, and he's getting these kinds of minutes. So he's just different as a person, as a player. He's more easily accepting of this role that Miami has carved out for him, whereas Jovic still has time to mature.
And he's the youngest player on the roster, on a veteran roster, a team that is 9-5 right now. And it would be one thing if the Heat were losing and had nothing to do. It'd be one thing.
Throw anything out there.
But it's like you want everybody I understand it. I'm not trying to tell fans how to fan. I get it. You want to see this guy. Sure. He's exciting. We all want to see him. We're all excited about what Nikola Jovic could be. But like Jimmy Butler, be a little bit patient. And things will pay off maybe down the line here. Let's talk about a little bit about what Jimmy says at the end of this clip.
We'll watch him move. Y'all stop playing Nico at the 5, man. Nico's not a 5.
I'm taking a victory lap here, David. This is a win for the Westheads out there. I have told you.
Who is they, though? Who is they? Like, who is they saying that Nico should play at the center position?
Sioux Falls is playing him at the 5.
Are they really?
A little bit. But it's the G League. Like, you don't have any real centers in the G League. That's like the one thing about the G League is like all the sort of bigger 4s play the 5. There's not a whole lot of like actual 7-footers in the G League because if they're that big, they're usually in the NBA. So
it's just Justin Champagny playing like the 4. Like, I mean, he's like undersized. Probably okay.
The G League is very, very undersized. So, but it is a little interesting that he's saying that. And like I said, I want to take a little bit of a victory lap here because not that I've been saying that Nikola Jovic is a 5, because I don't think the Heat believe that Jovic is a 5 either. But I think they believe he's a 4, and I don't think he's a 4. I think Nikola Jovic might be a small forward. I think he might be. I don't know if he's a 1 just yet. Maybe one day he could be, but he could be a playmaking small forward, a guy who I like him in the catch and shoot stuff. Look, the only thing that even resembles a power rotation kind of player in terms of Nikola Jovic is the fact that he's 6'11", 6'10", 6'11". Like, that's it. Other than that, there are no like discernible power forward traits about him. He doesn't rebound. He doesn't defend well against size. He actually defends probably a little bit better in space. Like, Larry Markkinen really blossomed when Cleveland figured out that he was more of a 3 than a 4. And now obviously he was an all-star last year in Utah. I think that's probably more of Nikola Jovic's game is a taller, lankier 3 like Larry Markkinen, like a Michael Porter Jr., like those kinds of guys who could be used to space the floor and make plays on the second side and things like that. That's what I think Jovic's long-term position is.
Yeah, point forward. I mean, he's been that his whole life. I think he's just one of those guys that used to handle the ball and then kind of just had a growth spurt, and that doesn't take away the skills or anything like that. I mean, I think it's kind of, it happened to Kelly Olynyk. It's happened to other guys too, like Anthony Davis. They were kind of reluctant to play the 5. I mean, Jovic, obviously not in the same defensive category as AD or anything like that, but I think he sees himself more on the offensive end, but he has to kind of lean into that defensive mindset, though. So it's like, if you can't guard smaller, quicker players in the backcourt, and you're not strong or burly enough or physical enough to guard the bigger players, then you kind of have to figure out, how to make an improvement on one end of the spectrum or the other, because otherwise you're just not going to get any playing time.
We'll see. I mean, the defensive stuff is the reason why he's right now out of the NBA rotation.
100%.
He needs to figure it out on that, and not just getting bigger, stronger, but also sort of the decision making and that kind of stuff. And you get better with reps. And in the G League, that's what's going to happen here. And at the end of the day, Jimmy Butler, I think, is right. Patience. Yeah. Patience is key when it comes to Nikola Jovic.
So many people are seeing this as a demotion. No way. This is a great opportunity for him to continue to stay ready. And he's looked great in doing so, right? Like, that's the whole thing. Like, he's clearly an NBA talent, but he just needs consistent playing time in order for him to continue to build these strengths. And you said it before, development is not a linear progression. There's ups and downs, and he's on the right path with the right team.
The Sioux Falls Skyforce play. We're recording this on a Tuesday. They play Tuesday night. You'll be listening to this on Wednesday, so they'll have another game under their belt by the time everybody's hearing this. But let's move on. Should the Heat trade for Jordan Poole? I'll tell you why they shouldn't, or if there's anything the Wizards can do to convince them next.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. And whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. You got Kyle Anderson. Jaden McDaniels out for some time. Kyle gets to fill in there. Santi Aldama, heat killer, has been out there. He's replacing Marcus Smart in the lineup. Jaden Ivey kind of on and off all season long.
Can I interject here?
Please.
I am really upset that Josh included Jaden Ivey on this list because I literally just dropped Jaden Ivey on my fantasy team. So now I'm like, while we're recording here, I'm scrambling to go to my fantasy team and make sure nobody's grabbed him. I'm going to scoop him back up if I can.
But if there's one player I think is going to stand out over the next couple of days, it's Eric Gordon. With Bradley Beal missing up to 3 weeks with extensive back issues there that might take him out on and off for the rest of the season, really. I think Gordon needs to kind of step up. That's the reason they acquired him.
A disaster in Phoenix, man.
I don't think disaster is the right word there. I think a lot of Heat fans are probably happy they dodged a bullet, but I think they're also kind of playing it safe with Bradley, and he's going to be available in the long run. That's fine. Whatever. The reason here where we're talking about Eric Gordon is he's going to have the opportunity to step up in Beal's absence. So let's see if you want to add him to your lineup, then Gordon is the right pick for you, according to Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball. He's going to help you with your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is all about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. Listen, if you're looking for parts for your car, or you're looking for upgrades, maybe you even bought a new car. Like I just got a new car, wanted to make some changes, add a couple of accessories. Guess what? eBay's Guaranteed Fit makes things so much easier to find the parts you're looking for. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors got it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, and exclusions do apply.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Good news, David. Jaden Ivey is still available. Wanted to get to some trade talk because
now that's a nightmare. You said Phoenix is a nightmare. Detroit losers of 12 straight. I mean, that's a team with promise.
Will they ever win again?
Who
finishes with more wins by the end of the year, Detroit or Washington?
Detroit. I think Washington just doesn't care. I think Detroit cares enough. And Monty's kind of like building things from the ground up. Like he tore everything down to build it back up, and everybody's kind of
feels like a team that just kind of goes on a run like the last month of the season, and then next year the big headline is like, remember Detroit? What they did? They went 8-4 in the last month of the season or something, and then
8-0 bubble Phoenix Suns. That's what Monty's team. That was kind of
happened. They went to the finals the next year. You want to put some money down on FanDuel? Pistons finals next year? Look at those futures. Maybe not. Speaking of the Wizards, there's a bunch of names out there already in trade talks. But rather than try to come up with some trades that make sense for the Heat and just waste all of our listeners' time that way, we thought we could actually look at this from the lens of the other teams and see if we could come up with some deals that make sense for them, but that we think that the Heat would say no to, if that makes any sense. So this is the bad fake trade ideas segment. Trades that we would say no to if we had the controls of the Miami Heat. Let's jump in in with go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just want to interject some damage control here because I can already see people saying, "Oh, there's no need for trades," and I happen to agree. I don't think there's a trade to be made.
That's the whole point of the segment. We're not doing any of these trades.
I just want everybody to be clear about this. Like we're saying these names Miami's linked to. Miami should and would have no interest in them. So the
Miami Heat are 9-5. They're top 4 in the Eastern Conference. They're feeling good right now. No need to make any changes to the roster at this point. They're not like in full scale Clippers. Oh my God, what do we do? We're freaking out. Like that's not what's happening right now. But there are other teams that could be freaking out that'd be calling Miami and saying, "Hey, can we introduce you in X, Y, and Z?" And Miami at this point would probably say no. And here are these trades. Let's start with Jordan Poole, who the Wizards will reportedly look to trade because they don't view him as franchise player material. This is according to Mark Stein. I saw that one coming. But here's the trade. Washington calls Andy Ellsberg, calls the Miami Heat hotline and says, hey, Jordan Poole, he's got experience coming off the bench for future Hall of Famers. He's got championship experience. You're looking for a guy to maybe come off your bench and improve your scoring on offense, and you're a little bit worried about Tyler Hero accepting a bench role. We will offer you Jordan Poole for Tyler Hero straight up. Obviously, the Heat say no to this.
Yeah, I mean, I know the question about Tyler accepting a bench role is kind of a concern for some people, myself included, because I think that might be a best fit for him. But definitely not at the cost of, trading him for Jordan Poole. Like I understand
you don't just
Jordan.
trade a better player for a worse player because you want to avoid an awkward conversation.
Yeah. Especially Eric Spoelstra. I mean, he's had to tell like everybody to play out of position. He told like the best player of all time, he's like, you know what, we kind of see you at the 4. Is that okay? You mind playing it, and taking the ball out of your hands a little bit. We told Chris Bosh, you're going to be center.
But
If you
Dwayne
can
Wade
do
off
that,
the bench.
yeah. If you could tell that arguably the best player in South Florida sports history, you know what, you're kind of a reserve now at this point in your career. You're cool with that, and you're not going to make a lot of waves about it. Yeah, I think you can tell that to Tyler Hero.
So if I'm Washington, I hear, okay, I got it. We figured we might as well make the offer. We understand. We wanted to upgrade our player for the better player, but we understand why you want to do it. However, we do have a 2030 first round pick coming over from Golden State. We have 9 extra second round picks. We have our own first round picks from 2026 on, so we could trade up to 4 future first round picks and basically a bajillion second round picks, as many as you want. We got them. How many do the Wizards have to offer to make this palatable?
None. It
doesn't
matter.
mean, in other words, even if they offered all of them, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, which they can't do, but sure. It would take not like Jordan Poole. Like, I can't say for certain that he's a bad player. Like, that's ridiculous. He's an NBA level player, right? And I think he's just in a bad spot on a bad team that doesn't care. I thought he was going to take this and be like, oh, I've got nothing but the open road. I thought he was going to propel himself into like our all-star levels of production, like 30 points per game, because he doesn't have to worry about Draymond or Steph or anybody else. But even that hasn't really panned out either.
I never bought that in the first place with Jordan Poole. You don't really get like players with more opportunity who are already bad decision makers and not efficient don't become better decision makers and more efficient with more volume and more stuff on their shoulders. So I think Jordan Poole could be a very good reserve, but he's also making the same money as Tyler Hero is. It's almost a 1-for-1 match at this point in their contract. So that's why the trade.
Is there any aspect like the conversation was Tyler or Jordan Poole a couple of years ago? Is there any aspect of his game in which he's better than Tyler at this point in his career?
His handle is better. That's it. And Tyler Hero has a very good handle. It has nothing to do with Tyler Hero's handle. Jordan Poole is just a better ball handler. Jordan Poole is probably one of the best 6 or 7 ball handlers in the NBA. But it's what he does with the ball when he handles it, like the decisions he makes after the whirly twirly fancy stuff. That's the problem with him. So all right,
longer range, maybe longer range. Oh yeah.
No, Tyler Hero has better range than Jordan Poole.
Okay,
definitely. Yeah, just look at their percentages for sure.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to this one. Let's go to this team that we just played twice, Chicago.
No.
The Heat get DeMar DeRozan. And the Chicago and the Bulls get Kyle Lowry and a first-round pick. Wait. Wrong button. Laugh track.
Nice, really nice.
Lowry and a first for DeRozan?
He's only making $30 million, and he's a free agent this year. So
yeah, both expiring contracts. Yeah.
But you don't want to necessarily give up a pick. And I don't see DeRozan's path to helping this team either. I mean, he's not again, the conversations have shifted so much. Like a couple seasons ago, he was like top 5 in the NBA. And now everybody kind of doesn't even like the idea of him on their team. So I think that's kind of swung too far in one direction. For this particular group, he's not an area of need. I think Kyle is more helpful in his limited role and limited production at this point right now than DeMar DeRozan would.
He's not a good fit. He doesn't shoot threes. He needs the ball in his hands. As a defender, there's not a whole lot there at this point in his career. He's not the right fit, and if you've got to trade a first-round pick and a good asset in Kyle Lowry right now, if we're talking about what you could do with an expiring contract, there's a lot of trades that could be done down the road. I don't think that's the thing that I would do if I were the Miami Heat. We already talked about Zach LaVine in a past episode, so if people want to hear our thoughts on Zach LaVine, they could do that. We recorded that last week, I think it was.
Yep.
So that's up there on YouTube and in your podcast app. Could the Heat strike a deal with the Warriors? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early during the NFL and NBA season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, especially with NBA activity picking up, the in-season tournament, so much going on right now, and the app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Maybe go in on a couple of odds for Bam Adebayo to win MVP, because I kind of like that deal. Go visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL and NBA.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Everydayers, tune in Wednesday night for our takeaways from Miami's game in Cleveland. Can the Heat make another win? Can they make it 9 out of 10? Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, your favorite podcast app. Some breaking news here. Heat's injury report. Kevin Love out for personal reasons, so no return to Cleveland. A little bit of a bummer there. We expect Thomas Bryant to pick up the backup center minutes there with Kevin Love out. Always looking forward to those kinds of comeback stories. Unfortunately, not going to be the case this time around.
It's weird. Like, personal reasons. I mean, again, you don't want to dig into it too much. He seemed fine after last night's game. I guess the only thing that could pass is, him and his wife and their newborn baby. Like, hopefully everything is fine. Yeah, but with a newborn, you never take too many chances, right? So, I mean, if he has to stop and fly back to Miami rather than stopping at Cleveland, all best wishes to him and his family. Hopefully nothing's wrong.
Let's move on to the trades that the Miami Heat shouldn't do here. Let's go to the Western Conference. We're going to talk about the Golden State Warriors. You know what? I like this one the best. So let's. I'm going to put a pin in that one. Let's go to this one. I think we can cover it quickly here. The Portland Trailblazers, our old friend Joe Cronin. He finally finds the Miami Heat's phone number lying around somewhere. He didn't have it before. He finds it, goes to the Rolodex, maybe makes some phone calls to some buddies of his and says, "Hey, do you have their number? I swear I never got it. I never got it from them. I went to their DMs and never answered. Like, I can't get in touch with them." They finally
is beeper too dated a reference there? I mean, you know what a beeper is?
I know what a beeper is. Joe Cronin, the beeper king, maybe, but I don't know that a lot of our listeners know. You got to know what a beeper is. Do people not know what a beeper is? That would be crazy. If you don't know what a beeper is, no shaming. We're not going to make fun of you, but like, just say something in the comment section on YouTube here, because that would be crazy. I had a toy beeper when I was a kid. I never had a real one. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, like your dad, right?
Just like dad. Yep. All right. Finally finds the number. Pages the Heat, gets in contact, and Joe Cronin offers the Heat Jeremy Grant for Kyle Lowry. David, straight up, no picks. They got buyer's remorse on the 4-year deal that they gave Jeremy Grant. The money is basically like for like. It works as a straight up deal. The Heat get a talented player, a 20-point scorer in Jeremy Grant, a guy who could start right away on the perimeter. What do you think, Kyle? And this would just be Portland just trying to get out of the contract. I'm not even sure Portland would actually do this. But if they were that motivated to get off the contract, it's a really good way to do it.
He's shooting 35% from 3-point range.
That's probably about his career average, right?
Yeah, and averaging 22%. So, yeah, that is actually his right on the money for his career. It's a possibility, but I've got to say, no, I can't. I can't see the reason why Miami would want to lock themselves into this kind of contract. I've kind of shifted here. I don't think Miami should make a trade, as much as I have for years now said Miami needs to shore up their bench or shore up like their role players and things of that sort. With the emergence of Hawkes, the emergence of Highsmith, Duncan kind of regaining his form, the fact that they're playing this well without their leading scorer, or maybe even their best offensive player in Tyler Hero. Like, I'm the mindset now that you don't make a trade on this team unless you're going to acquire like a bona fide superstar. And Jeremy Grant is not that superstar.
I don't look. Obviously, if you can get a superstar and then the deal makes sense, you do it. That's just what you do for superstars. If it's a high end role player, the caliber of Jeremy Grant, then I would do something. But the fit has to be a better fit than Jeremy Grant. I don't love the fit, and the money is really tough here. The money is really tough when you're looking at $27.5 million this year, almost $30 million next year, 32 the year after that, $34 million the year after that, $36 million player option that I bet he's going to pick up when he's 33 years old. You've got him under contract now for 5 years through 2028. That is not necessarily that's not the investment that I think the Heat should make. And it would basically put them over that second luxury tax apron next year because Kyle Lowry's contract comes off the books. And then you basically replacing that with Jeremy Grant's contract. And he's not good enough for me to warrant getting all the way up into that super max or super tax apron. So I like Jeremy Grant as a player just fine. I've never been like the biggest Jeremy Grant fan, but he's fine. But to me, I don't know that it's worth not even just like the Mickey Harrison's money. I don't really care about that, but like really just like the roster construction issues.
You might be able to re-sign Jimmy.
Right.
Like, I mean,
that would amount. No, you would have to salary dump like Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson to make that work this summer. Not necessarily right now, but this summer before the punitive things come into effect next year. And I would rather have Tyler Hero and Duncan on this team at their salaries than Jeremy Grant on that contract, which is why, by the way, that like this is even on the table, even hypothetically, Lowry's expiring just straight up, just so that the Blazers can get a get out of jail free card on this contract that they signed.
They had their chance.
Damian Lillard, I don't know.
But they had their chance.
That's right. No, no. In a real scenario here, he'd say, "I'm sorry, Joe. Who? I never heard of you. I think you have the wrong number." All right, last one here. The Golden State Warriors. Mike Dunleavy Jr. taking over as GM for Bob Myers, who's now doing a decent job at ESPN, calls up the Miami Heat and says, you know what, the Chris Paul thing, it's just not working. We don't have enough balance on the perimeter. We need a little bit more juice. We need a little bit more depth. We're trying to get out of this Chris Paul thing. Tell you what, we'll give you Chris Paul and some salary filler, just loose ends at the end of the roster. But basically, Chris Paul for Kyle Lowry and Caleb Martin.
No, I don't think so. Like, I think we've seen the end, and it's been coming for some time. Like, there's been a slight regression in who he is as a player, and I just think we're starting to see like the kind of light at the end of the Chris Paul's career tunnel here, and the fact that he's getting paid $30 million this year and another $30 million the next, no option on that. Just you're locking yourself into a whole heck of a lot of money for a player that just can't really contribute at a high level. He is not the answer for Miami. As much as fans might want superstar name and cachet and everything else like that, I just don't think he's a right fit for the Heat.
He needs the ball in his hands a lot. And all that stuff you just said really bummed me out because I loved watching Chris Paul when he was great. Like, he was such a unique player in this league, but he's averaging the fewest amount of field goal attempts for his career. That's per game. That's per 100 possessions, whatever you want to say. And he's shooting it at a career low rate, 39.8% overall field goal percentage. You saw the decline at the end of last year with Phoenix, which is why they decided to move off of him in the first place. It's a total bummer what's happened to Chris Paul, but he's also 38 years old. He's a future Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. Hopefully it works out for him in whatever here. There's a reason he's coming off the bench now for the Warriors, but that's not the move. If you're the Heat, like Caleb Martin right now is a better player than Chris Paul. I don't think that's even debatable. This is not even like a Kyle Lowry for Chris Paul conversation. The only reason that's part of it here is because the salaries match up.
Is Paul a better player than Lowry, straight up?
Probably right now, but in terms of fit, also Lowry is a better fit for this roster because, like I said, Chris Paul, he just wants to run pick and roll, have the ball in his hands the whole time. Kyle Lowry's at least okay playing off the ball a little bit. You would like Kyle Lowry to shoot the ball when he's in those off-ball positions a little bit more, but it's not exactly like Chris Paul is awesome at that either. He's not shooting either. So we kind of get the same issues with Chris Paul that you do from Kyle Lowry in terms of the catch and shoot stuff. So, all right, those are a bunch of trades that we don't want to make if we're the Miami Heat. I think that worked. I think that was I don't know.
Again, just because we were talking about these because the names are floating out there.
That's it.
No interest in actually doing these trades. Don't come at us in the comments, please.
I don't understand how anybody would read anything other than what we just did as what it is that we just did. But
I pointed out yesterday that the victory over Chicago shouldn't be like a cause for like euphoria. And everybody says that I've given up on this team. Me, of all people, have given up on this team because I said, you know
never
what?
given up on this team.
I don't know. I don't understand. Anyway, whatever.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Everydayers, tune in Wednesday night for our recap of the Miami Heat's game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, our biggest takeaways, and hopefully some credit cookies to be given out right before Thanksgiving. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on your podcast app. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.